Lady, the problem isn't in my pants. Mex-Men.
I was riding my bike to work, and then a turkey just came out of nowhere.
That's crazy.
On Auburn Road. Yeah. It was crazy.
That's crazy, Esther.
I feel like there's should be more to the story, but I don't know how.
What'd you do to this turkey?
I stopped at first, and I kind of went back, like, is that a fucking turkey? And then it came at me again, and I was like, oh, fuck, it's a turkey.
It's a turkey.
I was driving to my old job, and I was driving in the wooded area where I'm usually not at that time because I was really fucking late this day. And a turkey flew across the street and into my window, and then almost slipped into my driver's side window, and I had to push it out while I was driving so I didn't have a turkey in my truck because it's all bends after that.
Oh.
So I had to get the turkey out of there.
That's funny.
I've only seen one turkey, around here, around these parts.
So you probably don't have any interesting turkey.
Can you
facts.
imagine a
Just
guy?
seeing it was interesting to me. I was like, shit.
Can you imagine a guy in his truck though who's hunting, and then a turkey just does that, and he's like, "Oh, fucking great!"
You
Just stabs it real fast.
You could legitimately do this on the street that I had to take to work because there would be 10 turkeys. Like they knew that Thanksgiving was coming, and they always were just let's just we're tired of living a bunch of suicidal turkeys.
Well, at least that makes sense. That it's in a wooded area. I was next to a busy road in Pontiac.
Yeah, that's a weird.
That's a fucking weird spot for a turkey to just show up.
That's somebody's turkey. Anyway, welcome to this issue of Mex-Men. I'm Tony.
I'm Justin.
I'm Devin.
And today we're going to be going over the Powers of X and House of 10. Or no, Powers of 10, House of X.
Powers.
Issues 4 through 6. So the second half of Hickman's intro to his whole story.
Yeah.
Good. Thank
I was
you.
agreeing with you.
Yeah. I would hope you would agree with me because we discussed this before we started recording.
Yeah.
So it'd be weird if you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm cool with that." You had no idea.
Gave you permission after the fact.
I
all
guess
right,
so.
that sounds good.
Yeah,
we can do that.
if you're like, "No, I don't feel like it. Not today."
He just has his own plan. We're gonna go over something else.
I just start talking about Schism or something.
Some more fan fiction.
Yes. So I watched Scott Pilgrim the other day. But before we get started, we're kind of doing a thing with different podcast groups right now. And there's one that we're working with specifically that we want to point out. So, if anybody wants to go and listen to him, he's got a very good podcast. His name's James Bianco. And the show is called Marvel A to Z. And he goes through Marvel characters, heroes, and villains, one character at a time, one letter at a time, and posts an episode every 2 weeks. So
Yes.
go and give him a try.
All right, so House of X 4 picks up right where 3 left off with the explosion of the ship. What? It's not a given with these books.
No, what we're both laughing at is that you said House of X starts off where 3. You're...
No, I said 4 picks up right where 3 left off.
Your voice did a thing.
I was clearing my throat.
I know.
You're doing a Wolverine.
Not intentionally.
How are we still not good at this?
I don't know, man. Anyway, it picks up right after that explosion. It shows Xavier and a bunch of other mutants back on Krakoa are trying to make contact with Jean, and once they do, she's all panicking because of the repercussions of the explosion. It immediately, the team was Scott, Jean, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Monet, Husk, and Archangel, and the blast immediately kills Archangel and Husk. It does some internal injury to Nightcrawler, and Wolverine's all fucked up, he's lost most of his arm.
Yeah, which at first I thought it was kind of dumb that his arm has adamantium and that he lost his arm. But if you go back and look, it shows his arm's just stripped and it's the
Yeah. He's got
skeleton still
the
there.
bone. Like Jean even like makes a weird point of saying like, and Logan is not his whole self right now.
I think
Yeah,
it's
which is
weird.
like a weird joke to throw in there when you're
Fucking
terrified.
rude.
Yeah.
Like my arm just got like it degloved my arm, and you're gonna make jokes.
Yeah.
I'll stab you in the stomach.
Again.
Yeah.
It was a weird point though to make like the super complicated space radio that Xavier
That's what
makes.
I was just about to say that shit. That's so fucking over the top.
Yeah, when like his power before, like he could just reach his mind all the way to like the Shi'ar Empire and talk to Leandra whenever he wanted. It seemed like,
And he's
and
got
now
Cerebro.
yeah, and now he's got to make this whole complicated network of connections of linking Beast and Trinary and Storm for some reason.
Just so they can see your face in water, basically.
Yeah, which is also weird.
Use a fucking video
looked
camera
cool.
or something. Yeah, it looks cool, but it's like, why don't you just use like normal communication things?
Like a cell phone.
And they're only the distance to the sun. Like that's like Shi'ar has to be so much further away. It is so much further away.
I like you're like it's
Realization.
got to be right. What's closer, something out of our solar system or the sun?
So, like it was a really it was cool but bizarre.
And Jean means Monet, too.
Yeah, that Monet was like helping amplify Jean's powers somehow.
So she's
that
a
she can make
telepath,
it,
too.
yeah. So that was weird, but cool. Like it just immediately dwarfed all their powers. So that the X-Men deal with that explosion, and Xavier's like, well, can you still carry out the mission? And Scott's like, yeah, well, we fucking have to. There's no way we can't. This is pretty serious, and Wolverine agrees. So the plan is that there's 4 like columns that go from this ring, this collar that holds the Mother Mold head in place over the sun. Because even the humans are like, if it's crazy, we got to destroy it. But they're not banking on it being crazy, and they need it to eradicate mutants. So, but they have this in place, and the X-Men know about it. So they're like, well, we're gonna remove these columns that hold the head together and let it drift into the sun. And so Scott, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Mystique all go to 4 different sections of the base to remove these columns or collars as they're getting referred to, but like the whole thing is one big collar.
And if you're thinking like, how is this a suicide mission? They have flowers that teleport them everywhere. Charles doesn't let them take the Krakoan flowers to use as a teleportation gate in case they die without using them. And then now the enemy has that technology.
Yeah, they wouldn't want Mother Mold to see that. So
I'm sorry, but I know what you meant by that, but it sounds like that they were trying to not get in trouble with their parents.
Wouldn't want Mother to see that.
no, Mother Mold would be able to analyze what they were if they were to fuck up and fail. So they asked Nightcrawler if he's okay, if he can teleport them to their locations, and they do. And this whole book is pretty dense, and you got to go back and read the whole run several times to pick up all the nuances. But it is interesting that like he made it a point to be like, okay, the nature part, Mystique's going to go to that because she can blend in easier if she turns into something. And Wolverine, he's going right next to the security part because that's going to have the most men, and he's going to have to deal with that.
Which she picks a guard, by the way. They're like, we'll send you to the nature part. You can blend in with anything. Pick whatever you want and to blend in. She's like, I'm going to pick a guard.
No, she doesn't blend into anything. That's just it.
Well, there's something about the plan of her supposed to turn into a guard then, I guess.
No, it's what she was supposed to just blend. Like, that's what they said. But she didn't. Like, it was so stupid.
She just looked like herself.
Exactly. She just looked like herself in, like, the nature preserve area. But I'll get to it in a second. So, right away, the Dr. Gregor, the woman who just lost her husband, she is crying, and Omega Sentinel is like, hey, I'm just an observer here, so I can't command you to do stuff, but if you don't get up and do something, your husband would have just died for nothing.
That dude died in such a badass way, too.
He did, yeah.
Like, he goes in the room, and they're like, oh, what? Like, they thought he was just going to, like, try to shoot him and run him off, and he's just, like, strapped bombs and fucking...
He made a bomb
Yeah,
out of his gun.
He MacGyver's a bomb out of his gun.
Yeah, exactly what he does. Yeah, so right away, Wolverine and Nightcrawler, they get their collars detached, and Scott gets his done after the doctor decides they are going to fight back and everything. And Mystique isn't, like, answering, because they're all, like, communicating telepathically between each other. And she says something like, I got turned around in this place, so, like, I'm just running behind. And then she's like, wait, something's not right. And she looks over, and the Omega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor are like, ha, fuck you. And they hit a sunroof or some shit in a space station. And immediately Mystique is sucked into the vacuum of space. She's the first one to get killed. And, yeah, because she didn't hide. She didn't disguise herself as anything or into anything.
Mystique was the third that died.
Was the third that... Oh, I meant the first to die in there.
She made it in.
She... Yeah.
Correct.
Obviously, Husk and Archangel died first, but they didn't even make it out of the ship.
Bums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking worthless.
Although I was wondering, like, what was Archangel going to do with the big old wings in space?
It'd be weird the only thing I could picture him doing is, like, Pidgeotto flapping his wings forward and, like,
I mean,
shooting.
it would still work, right?
Yeah, he could do it.
Because he would propel himself. Or is there nothing to push?
No, I'm
But
saying,
Cyclops
like,
could do
shoot
that
out
shit.
his sharp metal feather wings.
Yeah.
But, like, he would just look like Pidgeotto doing Gust.
It just seemed like he'd be taking up an unnecessarily large amount of space on, like, a space station. But, I don't know.
Maybe he just wanted to go, and they were like, fuck it, Warren, just go.
I mean, he can kick some ass, so if he goes Archangel.
Well, he was Archangel, actually. So, yeah, don't his wings retract?
So you got
So that was for nothing, yeah. His wings retract. Well, he died anyway.
Like a bitch.
Yeah. Monet rather. She tells Marvel Girl to hide, though, because they realize the security force is sending ships to the wreckage of the X-Men ship that's docked on the top of the station. And Monet is like, look, they got to find somebody here. Otherwise, they're going to look when they do get here, and then they're going to find you anyway. So you go to this escape shuttle or escape pod, and
We had to get that right.
yeah,
It's not a shuttle.
it's a pod.
It's a pod.
Well, that's part of the problem that they have later. So it's like, you go into there, so when they find me, they'll be satisfied with having found someone. And Jean's all like, but the connection, I can't, like, communicate with Xavier if you're gone. And she's like, fucking try harder.
That made no sense because she's like,
Yeah.
oh, they'll find you, and then she leaves in an escape pod. So how would they fucking find her? She's gone.
Well, they'll see that the escape pod's missing. It's like, just being satisfied with having found something means that they're not going to keep looking necessarily. And also,
Yeah.
she had to keep the team telepathically linked. So that happens, and Monet takes on a bunch of guards that rush the ship, only to presumably die because they don't show her again.
They said she did die, which doesn't make any sense because she's bulletproof. So what did they fucking do to her?
Yeah, I don't know. They all get owned pretty easily in this.
Yeah, Wolverine and Nightcrawler just, like, was it burned alive?
Yeah,
Like,
that was actually pretty badass.
That
it was
fucking
badass,
awesome.
but, like, they're reaching towards the pin or whatever, the thing, and as they're, like, grabbing it, they're burning alive, and he pulls it as they both die.
Well, Nightcrawler died immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
so,
a bitch.
all right. So what happens is Dr. Gregor turns on Mother Mold, and Omega Sentinel was like, "Are you sure you should do that?" She's like, "Yeah, it'll probably be sane." And they start hearing the countdown, and they're like, what are we gonna do? Because there's still Mystique's collar is connected to the mother mold head, and Xavier's like, it's gotta go, do whatever it takes, and Scott's like, understood, and he's looking out of the window, like almost like he's gonna blast it, but he sees Kurt and Wolverine, and they're like, we got this, and there's this really touching moment between Nightcrawler and Wolverine where they're like, Wolverine's like, is there gonna be anything for us, for me on the other side? And Kurt's like, yeah, just fucking find me when you get there or whatever. Like,
Yeah, he's like, I've been to heaven. I can show you the tour. And then
Yeah.
Wolverine he's going to hell. I don't know why he.
right. Although it's an interesting question considering what happens anyway. Like whether or not do they go to an afterlife
For a second.
or at all. Like, so
Well, according to Deadpool, like you do, like because whenever he gets like stabbed in the head, he goes to like purgatory, and as he's like healing, he comes back.
oh, that's weird.
And didn't Wolverine fight his way out of hell before?
Yeah, apparently that happens to Wolverine every time he dies.
And I thought Nightcrawler was immortal since he came back from death.
I don't know that it was immortal, but that he could never go to heaven again. At least that was the implication
Like he
when he
couldn't
came
die
back
or
in
something
that
like
Amazing X-Men.
Yeah, I feel like Hickman just tosses shit out the window.
No, that's literally the whole point of Hickman is that he's rewriting everything. He can do whatever he wants just because he's changing the entire history.
Yeah.
For all we know with Hickman, Nightcrawler never went to heaven and
But
got
they
out.
keep some stuff because Emma did say, I just got rid of him to fuck about Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah, the one thing he keeps is from X-Men Black. The one series
Only
that
thing.
nobody kept anything from.
And Penance, since when Monet can't just transform into Penance, and neither does Penance talk either. That was fucking weird.
She did it though.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, Nightcrawler teleports Wolverine out onto the collar, and immediately he bursts into flames because they're right next to the sun, and Wolverine
and he's
started
covered
to-
in fur.
Yeah, and
Can you imagine how that smelled?
I don't know if you can smell at that point. Like his olfactory senses probably immediately start burning away too.
Oh, for him, but for Wolverine, he's got super smelling.
Well, all his hair is burning too.
Right,
so he's
his
supposed to
is
know.
burning. So he probably doesn't know if what's him and what's Nightcrawler. But he starts cutting at the collar, and Mother Mold cuts on and starts to talk about like comparing, like with humans created it, then humans must be God, and then that must make mutants Titans, and something about how they both are like it's judging both humanity and mutant kind, and it's finding them both wanting. And it actually, and I didn't catch this the first few times I read it, but the Mother Mold shoots like some weird cord out at Wolverine, trying to stop it from destroying the column, and he still gets through it, and Mother Mold's falling into the sun and says that like, we've stolen your fire, Olympus, and we'll burn you all, and then it gets destroyed. So it wanted to kill everybody, so that was probably a good
What's
thing
crazy?
that they destroyed it. So Wolverine dies right there.
Well, because they turned it on prematurely. They weren't going to turn it on yet.
Yeah, but grief-stricken doctor just lost her husband's like fuck mutants, and hopefully it's fine.
Yeah, just want to murder everybody at that point.
Yeah.
Once her husband was gone.
So Scott watches that happen, and he's like, all right, it's done, but we've lost a lot for it, and he's trying to devise a way where, he and Jean can still get out of there, and he's like, look, I can find some sort of like EVA suit and use my powers to get out to you, and then once I get to the pod, we can, like, I'll shoot it from there and you'll hold it together. Like, he's trying to devise this plan as he's running, and that's why it's important to the pod. If it were a shuttle, it'd have self-propulsion. But see, Scott's plan is like, he knows it's not, and he has to propel it. Meanwhile, there are a bunch of Sentinel drones that were off on Mars that were mining natural resources to help build this station that they had called to come and deal with the X-Men, and they're just now starting to show up. And Scott gets shot by Omega Sentinel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because she shoots him with the nanites, and she's like, "Hey, I know the nanites aren't going to kill you because you're too strong, but right now they're stopping your powers, so you are fucked." And he's like, "It doesn't matter. We did what we came here to do. There's no point in keeping me prisoner." And
Yeah, it's such a badass line.
Yeah, and the doctor's like, "You think I'm fucking keeping prisoners? You killed my husband."
Like, we don't take prisoners.
Yeah, and just
Shoots him right in the face.
Yeah. And he just keeps getting shot in the face and stuff, man. He got shot in the face like 3 times now?
At least twice this year.
Twice this year. Yeah. But he also in the Ultimate Universe, he gets shot in the face at a rally.
Yeah, and I assume the Age of Apocalypse Cyclops got shot in the face at some point.
Oh, I don't know what happened to that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he just had one eye, though, so I'm assuming he got shot in the face.
Never came across a pair of scissors, apparently. But, the long hair was a weird decision. Like a pro wrestler. It's like a weird thing pro wrestlers do. Where they just all have long, like, Fabio hair.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when you get big muscles, you gotta get the hair too.
Yeah. Maybe, like, if they can't get their neck big enough, it just helps hide their neck so it doesn't look so awkward.
Yeah, they just like, it's too small. I gotta grow my hair. Or maybe they're getting their muscles from their hair, because that's what the Bible told me how it works.
Oh, Samson?
Yeah.
Because it is so weird where it's like, I'm like the manliest man. You could tell by my long and luscious locks.
So you said you brought up the Bible. You were like, Samson? I immediately thought, Jesus? Like, dude is buff.
I want to get those hanging on. I want to get those hanging on the cross abs. You know,
Washboard abs.
Have you seen that picture of Jesus? He's on the cross, but he's ripped and he breaks off the 2 sides of the cross.
No.
Dude, I'll have to show it to you later. But anybody who's listening, Google Jesus breaks cross.
So yeah, Cyclops killed by bullets, and then Jean is killed by robots.
Yeah, I think she dies first.
No, she's the last to die.
Oh, I thought I remembered him watching her, but
It was like opposite because he was talking to her. He was like, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when all the drone sentinels make it around her pod and start breaking into it.
That was a cool image. It shows like the sentinel head just pop in through her pod.
Yeah.
Looking right at her.
And it is a weird nerfing of her power, though, because she was so powerful that she rejected the Phoenix Force. And they literally just happened earlier.
They literally busted her back down to Marvel Girl.
Well, I just thought she decided to take up that mantle again.
Like, from what it seems like to me is that Hickman is pushing everybody back 15 years.
Yeah.
He's done it to Scott and he's doing it to Jean, and like he's trying to get everybody before like the Bendis era and before Second Coming and all that, like before House of M.
Yeah. So Xavier, of course, though, crying because they all experienced it all happening.
Was he crying?
Yeah, he was.
He got the helmet on. He might have
Fake
just
tears.
been. I know, but I could see him just he has like crying things in his helmet, so he can
Has
fake
fake
being
tears?
sad. Yeah.
So
those were
manipulate
crocodile.
Everybody's thinking he's crying. He's not crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he says...
I wish somebody would shoot him in the face.
And he goes through it and says no more, and like that's the end.
That was dope when they did that No More, talking
Yeah.
about like how people just killed so many mutants in the past.
Yeah, because they bring up like every genocide of mutants.
Yeah, I'll read the quote. It's like narration panel. Every victory, ash. Every triumph, defeat. They've murdered so many of us. The world has grown used to it. This is just how things are for those people. For mutants. No more.
And then the next page, just no more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
No more.
It's sort of obvious what they're doing and how they're phrasing it. Like it's set up to be like a no more mutants thing, but just no more in general. Like,
Yeah.
But they want
No
it to be
more
as
atrocities.
iconic as, when she said that.
They want to like copy iconography, and they're just same word. Use the same word. Should work. It worked the first time. Just say it again.
Although it would have been pretty metal if he was just like, no more humans, and they just decided that they're gonna like it's mutants against humans now, just all out war. That'd be interesting.
That'd be a short war.
Oh.
Like the Avengers kind of balance it, but they should be. I mean, they're not humans.
No. Well, that's interesting because that's the direction the book kind of goes in an unofficial way. So anyway, Powers of 10.
This book made me sad.
This one did?
Yeah.
Well, I think the last one, what we just covered, 4 for House of X, probably the best individual book of the run.
Yeah,
And they ruin it with eggs.
Really?
In this one.
Yeah. They. What I'm talking about is that.
Well, no, it's not this one. It's the next one.
Is it the next one? I thought it was this one.
I thought you were
because they
drinking-
bring them
This
back.
one's a lot of exposition. They
I
do
thought it was
bring
your favorite character, Egg.
it
Shut
back.
your
Gold
mouth.
egg. So,
Can I offer you an egg in these trying times?
so it goes back to the
Year one.
first year of the X-Men. Xavier and Magneto go to recruit Sinister. That was a fun moment.
That was dope. See, he writes really good characters. He writes Sinister great.
Was Sassy Sinister?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like Sassy Sinister.
Fabulous Sinister.
Because they get there and there's the Sinister Sentry who's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Look, while we have a lot of resources, no, we don't have time to give it to sad people over sad things."
He was
and their
making
sad
fun
lives.
of Xavier. That shit was hilarious.
And he's like, "Oh, and great, you wore a cape. So clearly you don't have an appointment because who has that while having the other?" That was a great line. And then he starts like, they're like, "We want to speak to Sinister," and he's like, "Well, I am Sinister, so like you gotta be more specific." They're like, "The one in charge." He's like, "All right, well, maybe you, but not the sad boy in the sad chair." And then Magneto starts jacking him, not off, up.
Whoa.
He jacks him up against the wall because he's wearing armor.
You know, he jacks him off against the wall.
And he's like, "Dude, fucking, we don't have time for this. Take us to your leader, bitch." Is basically his tone,
I can't believe Hickman wrote that.
right?
Bitch.
So they go to Sinister, and he's like, "I love that cape," like right away.
He didn't even let it. He was like, "Stop. Before you go any further, I have to make one thing perfectly clear. I love that cape."
He's like, "Why don't I have a cape?" And then there's like a butler Sinister next to him. He's like, "I know it's a travesty. I've always said you should have a cape." And he's like, "Really? Why didn't you bring it up?" He's like, "Slipped my mind," and immediately was like, "Execute this man." And they like all the other Sinisters just start ripping him apart. It's fucked up.
Was he says something when he introduces himself about how he's like fabulous or something.
That was the next Sinister.
Oh, no, he did too, because they're like, "Hey, we know about your work recording the world's genome," and he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm not." Like, well, he says, "How do you know about that?" And he's like, "Well, we just know. We have our ways." And he's like, "I guess I'm not surprised word's getting out. I'm pretty fabulous." Yeah, or I do,
I do
great
amazing work.
Yeah, I do amazing work. So I like the way he writes Sinister. He's pretty funny. But he's against their plan because he's like, "Fucking, I tried introducing mutations before. I didn't like what it did. Fuck the mutant gene. I want nothing to do with it." And then he gets killed by the mutant Sinister, who's wearing a cape.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, he sucks, but I'm in."
Yeah, so it's me, the Sinister with the mutant gene. And if you must know, my mutant power is overthrowing tyrants and being absolutely fabulous.
That's
Yeah.
the one. Yeah.
And Magneto's like, "I can see that." So
And
you
if
got
he
a hard
didn't-
on for Sinister?
And if he didn't already have the cape, it would have sprouted out of his body at that point.
Yeah. And so they decide that while he's still going to be collecting genetic material from everything, he's going to make sure he's collecting genetic material from all the mutants that he can. And Xavier's like, "You're going to do this, and we're even going to help you with some of those samples, but you're going to forget this conversation happened until I want you to remember." And then they leave bar Sinister. And it actually gets brought up later because there's a part where Moira's like journal explains some stuff, and she's like, yeah, those Magneto and Xavier just on their own went to talk to Sinister and recruit him. And I was like, don't do that. So she's remembering from that ninth life with Apocalypse that Sinister fucks them over.
Yeah.
So she's actually against it. So I know that was one of the things we were talking about before. Like, fucking, of course, Sinister, like, betrayed everybody.
But
and
which
like,
Sinister?
yeah.
Like, fucked them over before. Maybe it was one of the ones that didn't have a cape.
Well, one of the Sinister secret things, too, like, alludes to that the mutant Sinister is also brainwashed way before they get there.
Sinister Secrets sounds like they sell underwear with holes in it.
Yeah, but you know, that's one of the weird side things that get added to those books because they have so many just side articles or like diagrams that like look cool but kind of just pointlessly increase the page count.
Yeah, there's a lot of pages in these books.
Fuck that, we ain't reading.
They just kept putting pages, and it wasn't. I wanted there to be no pages in this book.
So then the story jumps 10 years into the future, and Xavier takes Cypher to Krakoa, and he's like,
Doug.
yeah, Doug. And he's like, hey, you talk to it. We're pals, but like I can't get through to him so much. And he's like, yeah, all right, so I get it. Like, you're missing the nuances of language. So they find out that Krakoa is upset because it used to be a one entity, and it got split into two when some like hell bad guy things showed up and ripped the land in two. They're not really great at like he just calls it the enemy. No, Apocalypse was the good guy in that scenario. Apparently Apocalypse fought on behalf of the world to put the demons like back to their hell or whatever, and his four horsemen were left on the other island to like guard it. So like his original four horsemen haven't died; they've always existed, and they're on that island. I don't know, Araco? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Krakoa and Araco.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a different name when they were formed together.
There was
Okara. They were Okara, and they got split into Krakoa and Araco.
There was a dope part when Douglas is going to talk to, I don't know why I called him Douglas. That sounded weird to me.
Like I called him
Because he's your son and he's in trouble.
Douglas Ramsey. Dude, he was walking up to Krakoa, who is now looks like one of those trees in Mortal Kombat with the face.
Yeah.
But he was passing his hands along the like foliage or whatever, or the plants, and they like changed because he's got a warlock hand, so it looks like all technical.
Yeah.
And they changed to show, I don't know, it looked like they were speaking, which is pretty sweet.
There was also like, I don't know, it seemed like there was some type of transfer of the like warlock virus, like to Krakoa.
Yes, I took that as he was like reading, like they were communicating together.
And
Him
that's
and the plants.
yeah, but I think his existence in any situation, he's always doing that. He's always like trying to or like absorbing the language around him.
Yeah, but I just thought it was dope how they like you see it. It was just such a little thing.
Because Pepe is fucking awesome.
Pepe.
He is, man. I think he's up there with like favorite artists. Like didn't he do the Extermination books too?
I know he did. I think he does a bunch of X-Men stuff.
He's good. It's really good. A lot of simplistic design, but like complicated too. Like it's like this weird mix of like a lot of stuff's going on, and he makes it look easy. Anyway, after that, like Xavier's like, all right, cool. So now that you guys know how to talk to each other, you stay here and create a whole language, and I'll be back.
Yeah, he's already in the plane, which I thought was hilarious. He like hops in the plane. He's like, all right, you stay here. Here's a bag. Peace.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess Krakoa can just make him food and stuff, so it's fine, but...
Yeah, but he's just got to be a vegetarian.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine that, though? Like, you just go on a trip with somebody, and they're like, all right, later.
Yeah, you stay.
Like, that's your life now.
I mean, could you imagine, though, you're trying to learn to talk to somebody, and the only thing you can eat is parts of them.
That is also true. Because he makes it a point later to be like, Krakoa isn't a plant. It's a animal. It's a person.
Yeah, and they say later that with coffee beans. This is jumping like way ahead, but
Oh yeah.
like I wouldn't have that coffee because I've seen how it's made.
Yeah, they were fiending off of that coffee.
Oh, and New Mutants, yeah.
Yep.
So it jumps ahead again to 1,000 years into the X-Men time, and it's showing the Phalanx, which is weird because they look like Warlock. So I'm wondering if like the whole techno-organic virus thing is somehow related to the Phalanx.
Yeah, didn't you see? They have that on there. It says they made them.
Oh, yeah? No, then I missed that. Was that one of the diagram pages or whatever?
Yeah, it shows
Yeah.
like that the Technarch was right below the Phalanx or something like that.
So the Technarch is the techno-organic virus?
Yeah, the Technarch is Warlock's race or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, well, then that makes a lot more sense now. Especially considering that once they took a copy of that guy, they made a exact replica the way that in New Mutants they used Warlock to make replicas of the New Mutants
Yeah.
in at the end of Dead Souls,
Yeah.
which you can go back and listen to that episode if you haven't.
Yeah. Plug your own stuff. I like it.
Yeah. It was a Halloween special.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the Phalanx are sort of convening with humans or post-humans of that time because the humans are like, well, we want to be a part of what you are because that's ascension for us. Like, that is the greater thing. We can't know that that exists and not reach for it. And the Phalanx are basically like, well, we don't care what you hope for. You either will be able to or you won't be able to. And it's a weird way that Hickman goes about explaining it, but what basically happens, like, the humans create a technological shell that they upload their consciousness to that the Phalanx can absorb because they can't absorb organic materials. So
It's kind of so they'll live forever, basically. Or their
yeah, and
knowledge
the
will.
idea is that the consciousness of humanity in that culture will live on forever within the Phalanx. But the cost ends up being that they need to eat, and so they're going to eat all of the world to do that. So you lose the ability to have the reality progress, but the idea of you lives on forever, literally. And you become part of the Phalanx, which then would hypothetically go back to the Dominion it came from, wherever, like, singularity, black hole thing, and then you'll become part of a godhead. So you'll be part of God, but in the smallest, insignificant way. But a part of the greatest.
Aren't we already a part of God in the smallest, most insignificant way?
I think that's a song, isn't it?
Probably.
It's something you sing. A hymn.
So, anyway, this issue of Powers of 10 ends with them making that decision. Like, the human elder, or, sorry, post-human elder, he has this shell of his consciousness. It gets absorbed by the Phalanx, and then it asks the Phalanx, okay, so how do I know I'm really inside of you? And he's like, you're inside of me.
Are you in yet?
And he's like, well, then if he words it in a really cryptic way, but basically saying, like, all right, I have a sequence in my mind, so if I have it and you have my mind, then you have the sequence, tell it back to me. And he does, and he's like, all right, so it works. And he's like, yep, it works. And so, and the elder's like, well, then do we have an agreement? Does it work? And he's like, we'll let you know in a minute. And, like, all the Phalanx, like, people that are there, like, just converge into an orb, and then the issue ends.
It's a Megazord.
Yeah, kind of.
Or is it a dome?
No, it's an orb. The dome's half a thing.
Yeah.
There's a double dome.
The Dimsdale double
The
dome.
Dimsdale double dome. So the Dimsdale sphere.
Yes. They didn't know if the Phalanx was going to accept it.
Yeah.
So that was the whole test, why they were going to see if he was going to accept it or basically just kill them all. Turns out they're going to accept it and kill them all.
So House of X is the introduction of the Five. And this is the resurrection one. But yeah, your favorite part. Where they show
Shut
that
your whore mouth.
Gold Balls all along was not creating balls, but eggs
Fuck you,
that
Hickman.
were non-viable
Fuck you.
until
Perfectly round eggs.
Yeah.
Not oval shaped at all.
and then,
I want to thank you for saying that.
and then Proteus, he's able to make them viable eggs, and then Hope puts the DNA, just a syringe of DNA of whoever they're going to replicate into it. After that, Elixir starts the cellular regeneration and replication within the egg, and then Ava speeds up the time surrounding the egg so it perfectly incubates whatever mutant is inside the egg to the age and physiology that they desire, and then Hope just sort of facilitates it all, by having them hold hands, and
She makes them all stronger and
yeah,
steadies their powers.
She makes them all work at their peak.
Yeah.
Well, I guess makes sense. She can replicate anyone's power, so maybe why
She
not
enhances
enhance
powers,
it?
it says. Which I think Proteus could have just did this all by himself, but
You'd think, since he just warps reality anyway.
Yeah, but they had to ruin Fabio.
Maybe, but
Definitely.
Hickman seems to really like teamwork.
That makes him...
With the X-Men, it makes sense. So he likes to have everything working in tandem in complicated ways, like the way with the space radio.
yeah.
That makes Gold Balls everybody's mom.
He is. And in a way, though, aren't these all just clones?
Yeah, but I don't know. They also went out of their way to be like, the soul's there, but they said the soul is just their memories.
Yeah.
Which
They're making a definitive line that soul is memory, not some extra thing.
Did we? Is it coming up, or did we skip the meeting with Forge?
Oh, that's coming up.
All right.
That hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Well, it technically did already happen, but he doesn't get to
I know
it in
it's
the book yet.
it's one of my issues with Hickman's run is that they keep on just giving you one thing and explaining it later.
Yeah, just bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
This moment, actually, what we were talking about before in the first issue, that can't be them after Rosenberg, because that's them in this moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they do this thing where it's the same panels and same pages that get returned in these books in different orders, where it's okay, remember this part that we teased earlier? Well, this is the full conversation, so now you know a little more of it. Or this is just some more of that conversation, which we're going to, 2 issues later, bring back up again, ad nauseum, between Moira and him on the bench at the carnival. They bring that up over and over
Yeah,
again.
just reuse the same page.
Yeah. So, that's that moment. They kind of just do it way in the beginning, and they're like, "Oh, remember that? It's happening now." This is that exact moment after they had died in that. So how Cyclops gets his eye back and stuff that really is a mystery. He kind of was just yeah, fuck that stuff that happened. It didn't really.
He didn't care about anything that happened in Rosenberg.
But did it show him without? I mean, he could have had his eye gone, or he could have been eyeless.
I mean, he was blasting full blasts and stuff. So
It's full power.
yeah, it wasn't just one little beam or half a thing.
It wasn't like that before, though, was it? When he had his
It was.
eyes around, it was a less. I don't know. It didn't look like it to me when he was fighting at the end of Rosenberg's run. Those look like full blasts, man. It's full powered.
No, I think LaRocca remembered to not do that, but I think other artists made it seem like it were full things. In the Champions issue, they look like regular optic blasts, even though he obviously only had one eye then, because they even had the bandage.
I don't know how much it matters though, because
I don't think it
the
does.
fucking-
The comics.
Well, I mean, the visor restricts the blast anyway.
So you think it would spread it and stuff?
Yeah.
Like
I
make it
think the
wider?
only way you'd be
Like
able
it build up.
you would tell is if he took the visor off and blasted with just one eye. But with the visor, it's probably... I mean, it's a fucking humongous blast. Bigger than the visor. And it's condensed.
Yeah. I guess.
No, definitely.
I mean, other artists draw it differently too.
Tony's the visor mechanic here.
Yeah.
You know how this works.
I forgot about that. I'm also a Cyclops mechanic.
You know, I think Wolverine is too. Did you notice that? By the way, you know their rooms are all right next to each other, but they have fucking doors to each
Yeah.
of their rooms. I didn't notice that till today.
But only like 3 into like every 3 have like that ability. So like there's 12 rooms, but they're all grouped into 3s.
Oh.
Yeah, but only their rooms are connected.
Yeah. Probably sounds confusing listening to this. In further issues, once X-Men start, there's like a Summers home on the moon.
Yeah.
And Wolverine lives with them. And like Jean Grey's room is like in the middle in between Cyclops's and Wolverine's room. And there's like doors so they can all meet in the middle.
For Monopoly.
I'm sure just some weird 3-way game of chess.
Well, someone's just. That's actually one of those sinister secrets, too, is like, he's the best there is at what he does, but she's a married woman with a child.
That sounds like a TV.
Yeah.
like that sounds like a new sitcom coming to ABC. Like he's the best there is at what he does, and she's a woman who's married.
Yeah, and then the husband knows, but like, doesn't say anything because he's up to much of the same and more.
Yeah,
They're
Emma's
both Peg and Wolverine.
But and then there's always the scene where like he's hooking up with Emma and Jean walks in and like the audience like ooh, and then Jean joins in and then you have the wooing sound.
Oh.
Because I'm saying that Jean and Emma are going to be spending a lot of time together.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So, anyway, after the 5 resurrect the X-Men's physical bodies, and Magneto's sitting there, like, explaining all this to Lorna because exposition, you know? Mm-hmm. And Xavier comes up with the Cerebro Maker helmet, and he does this weird thing where he crouches down to Scott, like, he puts his visor on him, and then he does this, like, so what's up? like pose to him, where he just like he's kneeling and he like gets in his face but like opens his arms. It's just weird. Like
I'm picturing after that he like gets real low to the ground and crosses his arm like
like kinda.
Now let's go break dance.
And like all the thoughts and emotions and everything that had been replicated for Scott shoot back into his head, and it shows like that's how they become themselves beyond the shell. And Scott's like, so did it work? And he's like, yep. Don't do that again, though, because made me cry.
My manly laser-filled tears.
Which is weird, though, that they just, like, then present them to everybody naked.
Yep, that's also kind of a weird thing. So right away, after they've all been reborn, Storm's like, get the fuck up. We got to show everybody your naked bodies. And then Storm does this weird, like, kind of culty, like, carnival barker thing where she's announcing that they're all alive, but how do we know it's them? And so she's like, tell me something only we know. And then she's like...
Even though they had the memories of playing it.
Exactly. So
like, nobody in the crowd was like, excuse me, that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, so she does that for all of them. But Hickman clearly gets bored after Monet because that keeps going on. But now he's got like just Xavier saying some stuff. And then they get back to Kurt, and she's just like not saying their real names anymore. She's like, and Nightcrawler.
I know, right?
She forgot his name.
I thought that was weird, too, because she said everybody's real name, and then she said Nightcrawler.
She's like, Craig? Nightcrawler. Just Nightcrawler.
Yeah, like when she went to present Monet, she like went to hug her. She's like, "Don't touch me." Like, yep, yeah. This is Monet.
Must be the Monet.
So they all celebrate that they're all alive, and they're like, and these are the heroes of Krakoa. And then it goes from that to the they're at some
United Nations.
They're at the United Nations, but I think it's the Security Councils. Like, there's a Security Council vote that was before the general vote to establish them as a sovereign nation. And Xavier, like, all the panels are showing everybody, like, talking and being chummy, but Xavier and Emma are having a conversation in their minds. And he's like, hey, I know you influenced the vote. And she's like, what are you calling me out for, basically? And he's like, no, I'm just saying thanks. You know, because I was all but told that, like, you know, Russia wasn't going to fucking vote for us. And we would have been, you know, not a nation then. And then they let all the villains enter Krakoa. And Wolverine's all like, you sure you want to do this? It's really stupid. And, and then Magneto's like, well, come on. Everyone's getting a second chance. Otherwise, you and me wouldn't be here.
Which, like, Wolverine has been on the X-Men for decades.
Yeah, but he's killed so many people.
Yeah, for the X-Men, mostly.
I would say for the X-Men sometimes. For himself, mostly.
He was never, like, a villain to them. Like, Magneto was international terrorist and their biggest villain for a long time.
Yeah, but he's been part of the group a couple times.
I was just saying, like, him comparing himself to Wolverine. Like, dude, maybe you shouldn't throw it back to Wolverine. It's mostly you.
Yeah. And then Powers of X after this, this is going back in time again. Like, I don't know why he keeps doing this stuff. So Xavier is back and talking to Forge, like, hey, do you think you can build some servers that'll hold a bunch of, like, mines? If I just had backups of mines that I wanted to put somewhere. And he's like, that's not possible. We don't have enough energy to do that. And he's like, yeah, say it was. And he's like, all right, yeah, I could do that. And then you'd have to have aside from that initial server, you'd have to have a backup one. And he's like, yeah, I want 5. And then there's this, like, kind of funny panel of Ford's like, yeah, all right, 5 impossible things. And Xavier's like, all right, now I got some, like, Shi'ar shit that's going to solve this problem. And he's like, oh,
well, because
awesome,
he also says, like, you're going to need a shit ton of memory because, like, you can't just save one version of every single person. You have to continually be saving everybody because what if this person turns evil and you're bringing them back, you're going to just keep bringing back the evil version of them. Like, basically saying we want to be able to pick the exact version of that person that we want to bring back.
Oh, I didn't even read it like that. I read it as...
They're just going to keep updating it every week.
Yeah, like, because you just have more experiences.
Yeah, but they have back catalogs. They keep all the old versions. That's why he said that they need so much memory.
You got to think at a certain point in time that's unethical.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of this, right? But, like, that you can bring someone back but cherry pick the time in which they have... Like... Man, Xavier really is a dick because, like, cause I was looking for where is the Xavier is a dick moment, but it is this whole thing.
Yeah.
Of just like
this in the last episode and our entire show.
Like he can pick whatever version of you to bring back, and you have to just be grateful because you're brought back.
Yeah, and purposely made it that way.
But I mean, also probably you died because of him anyway.
Yeah. But I will say to give Hickman credit on one thing because we are a little hard. Like,
I'm not. I think he's great.
Yeah, but the way we talk about Hickman kind of sounds like we don't like it at all. Yeah. We just like Rosenberg's more.
I just feel like there should have been more of a segue between the two.
But to give him credit on something, the whole him going to Forge to work on Cerebro, that is like from like X-Men number 30 something. Where, like, he asked Forge to, or, like, one of the really early, I don't want to say, like, an exact number because I don't remember, but he asked Forge to actually work on the helmet and make improvements. So there is precedence of that exact moment. They just changed it a little bit from making, like, specific changes to making those specific changes.
Yeah. It's just, not to take credit away from Hickman. They keep fucking up the X0, X1, X2, and X3 in these. For the most part, they're accurate. But every once in a while, it's like, how is this conversation with Forge happening 10 years into the X-Men, but then so is the thing with Cypher?
That was 1 year, I thought, Cypher.
No, X1 is 10 years. That's the whole power of 10 thing.
No,
is
1 year,
X0.
like year 1.
That doesn't make any sense. What?
That was not year 10 with Doug and Cypher. That was year 1.
No. X1 is year 10. It's 10 years into the career of the
I'm not saying what
X-Men.
X it was. I'm saying what year it was.
It can't be year 1. It was 3 months before the present day. Year 1 is the carnival.
I thought that was year 0.
I think it's all.
That's X0.
I think-
X0 is the beginning of the X-Men.
I think it's all Hickman's fault for how confusing he made all of this.
It is confusing.
Because you also had a lot of questions on the 6th timeline.
Oh yeah, and we'll get to that in a that's the last issue.
And there's a chance that all 3 of us are just stupid.
Nope. I mean, other things, yes, but nope. This story is like I've reread it 3 times now.
Because I'm sure there's somebody listening who's like, "You idiots!" Like it's obviously this.
They could feel that way if they want to, but yeah. Anyway, it goes back even further. Like now it's a month before, and Xavier's recruiting Emma Frost. So this showing that whole like, hey, we want you, like, we got this whole plan for, hear us out, an island nation for mutants, and we want you to help us build the government. And she's all like, you guys are fucking idiots, an island again? And she gets mad at Magneto because, like, you should really know not to make an island of mutants again.
They're like, but wait, this one's alive. She's like, how's that better?
Yeah.
It can protect us.
Yeah.
And also, here's a language you didn't know existed.
And they take her to Krakoa, and then she's like, she sees it, and she's like, all right, one more time for the kids. We'll do it again. And she's like, what do you guys need? And it's like, well, you already have an official trading company, and we're kind of bribing our way into existence with these medicines, but we can't trust humans to transport the medicines, so your company already has international reach, so we need you to do that. He's like, all right, great. So I'm like the, what was it, the East India Trading Company? Or is that what it was called?
I don't remember.
I think so. Yeah. And she's like, cool. And I get 2 seats for, like, why 2 seats on the council? And they're like, oh, because we need you to bring in Sebastian Shaw. And then that was a pretty great moment where she's like, but fucking, I just got rid of that guy.
Yeah.
I liked when they were selling, or they were trying to tell her she'll have exclusive rights to sell those medicines or whatever.
Oh, to transport and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and Magneto's telling her we would be willing to formalize the arrangement, of course. We were thinking a 20-year. She's like, ahem. It's like, yes, as I was saying, we were thinking a 50-year exclusive contract.
Yeah. Although at that point, it doesn't even really matter. Because they're just going to have, like, mutants do mutant shit anyway. So, like, they're not, like, unless there's going to be another, like, mutant shipping company.
Well, and all of
like,
this
she's not going to have competition.
All of this is going to be over in maybe a year or 2 comic time.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Like, Utopia didn't last long at all in comic time.
Yeah.
Like, they basically just got on that island, and then AVX happened.
Yeah, Hickman tends to do runs for about, like, 4 or 5 years. So he'll probably do that with X-Men, and then somebody will take over and be like, let's go in a different way on this.
But so far, I like the Krakoa thing. Although, one of the maps of Krakoa shows that it exists both in the Atlantic and the Pacific.
That's weird.
Yep. I mean, with gateways, that makes sense, but, like, that it's a landmass?
Does it move? I mean, obviously it moves. It fucked the other island.
Well, that island moved to it.
Yeah, but it's the same island.
Yep. And it fucked. That was an X-Men 2, if you're wondering. So, a little ahead of ourselves. But, yeah, how...
It was pertinent to what we were talking about.
Yeah. How the one island got split into 2, then they get back together.
I think there's a country song about that.
Probably all of them.
A specific one with Dolly Parton
About an island becoming...
about islands fucking.
Really?
Yeah, the islands in the stream.
Wow, that's about islands fucking?
It's the same.
I just thought you meant about, like, people getting divorced and coming together to fuck.
They're metaphors for the islands.
Oh.
Like, the islands are metaphors for them. But also, it's Ghetto Superstar.
What?
It's the same song, Ghetto Superstar and Islands in the Stream.
Oh. I guess.
No, it just is.
I can't... Well, all right. I'm
show you
saying
after.
I'm taking your word for it. I don't know. I know what Ghetto Superstar sounds like. I don't know what Islands in the Stream sounds like.
It sounds like Ghetto Superstar.
I can I can gather that from what you said. Anyway, she's like, all right, fucking fine. I'll get Sebastian back, because the idea is, if she's gonna be the legitimate face of the Hellfire Club and transporting the medicines, they need an illegitimate underground guy to get it to
the dirty work,
Yeah.
all the wet work.
Well, for the countries that won't recognize Krakoa's sovereignty or work with them, they still need to get mutants out, so to ship them away from those countries, and still need to get the medicines to those countries, to allies who would work with them.
Yeah, and kind of to undermine the countries.
Yeah,
So
but
look how much you're doing better with the little bit that's slipping through. Imagine if you stop being a prick.
Exactly. But to also be like, we don't know how that's getting there, though, because officially we're not doing it.
Yeah. Even though we're powerful enough for like it not to matter that you are upset with us, they're holding the whole world at ransom at the moment with drugs.
Yeah, kinda. But, like, helpful drugs.
Like, really, the good drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. They even say though that they crashed, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they crashed the entire medical industry, like the prescription medicine.
Yeah, they were like,
industry.
fuck that industry.
They were like, "Are you sure? Because it's gonna ruin the entire industry." And he's like, yeah, do it. Fuck them.
And then Emma's like, all right, well, I will do it, but I also need one more seat at your quiet council, is what they end up calling it.
Quiet council where they get together and talk.
Right? They don't know the definition of words, these people. They want to run a nation. It's crazy.
Well, you haven't noticed that every time they start talking, there's somebody going shh, 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 off panel.
They hosted in a library.
Yeah, and that librarian thing, that was all weird till the end. As you brought up library, it just made me think of the librarian character.
Oh, yeah. Fuck that guy.
So, anyway, Xavier then invites all the bad guy mutants. So that's also another thing that happens. So, like...
Out of order, because we already see him walk in. So
Right,
we
yeah.
see him invite him.
It's like Hickman decided, like, he's going to do a thing, and then the next issue he's going to explain how he did that thing. And that's, like, the entire series is, like, do something, then, like, explain, oh, and this is how that happened. And then does something, and then explains how that happened.
It's like a shitty magician.
Does the magic trick, and it's like, and how I did that. This is how you're stupid.
It's like that guy that was on the WB for a long time and was just doing magic and showing you how to do it.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, magicians hate the guy.
Oh.
I think I know what show you're talking about. It was on Netflix.
Yeah, the Black Mask.
Yeah.
Oh. And then there was a moment, too, where... so Xavier is inviting everybody, and he gets a Namor. And Namor's like, all right, so let me get this straight. You guys finally realized you're not humans, not in the way you want to be, that they're never going to love you or appreciate you, even if you might deserve it, and that you actually are better than them, and you've started your own nation because of this, and you think that I haven't thought I was better than everybody else in all this time? It's like, fuck you.
Actually, I think...
Like, way to finally get to where I've been.
Because I know you got it pulled up there. I think you should read the quote
Yeah.
from Namor where he, like,
It was, yeah.
it's like, you want to play king?
That shit was dope. He's like,
Well, it's not quite play king, but...
oh, he said, I'll just read the second half when he, like, dissed him.
Yeah.
It's good that you finally figured this out, but let me ask you, do I strike you as someone who's just now realized how much better I am than everyone else?
Yeah.
And do you actually think I believe that you feel this way too? Go away, little man, and don't come back until you really mean it.
Yeah.
That's one thing I have to give Hickman, and he's so good at writing Namor.
Well, I think he did really good with characters because he wrote Namor good, he wrote Magneto good, and Sinister. They all have their the characters. Some
and I
people
even
write
think
everybody the
Cyclops
same.
was written well in this, and then for some reason he just sounds really weird in the X-Men book.
I feel
It
like
was fucking weird. X-Men was so weird. It felt like Pleasantville.
Yeah, it didn't feel like Hickman was writing it. Like it. I mean, he obviously is, but
Well, he's used to writing the Fantastic Four for 5 years, and he wrote the entire Summers family like they're the Fantastic Four.
And then Cable calling Jean mom, weird.
Yeah.
Like, how old are you, kid?
yeah. That's what I was telling.
Kind of not his mom.
Yeah. Well, also kind of is.
Kinda, but
Like a clone of his mom is his mom. I mean,
Wait,
well,
what?
His mom is a clone of her, so she is kind of his mom. But it's. Did you read that issue? But Scott and and Rachel and Nathan.
I read X1, not 2.
Okay, not two. All right. Never mind. That's not what we're talking about anyway. So, anyway, that happens with Namor, and then it jumps into the future where the Phalanx decide, yeah, we're going to accept humanity by this term. Like, but to do that, like, this is what's happening. And then that's when they replicate the Elder, and then the replication of the Elder kills the Elder. And it's like, this is what's happening. And so tomorrow it's going to happen for the entire planet. And then that ends that. Now,
I like that you can hear on the mics that you turn the page. To that, you're like, oh, there's nothing really after this.
yeah. So then we get back to the last issue now of House of X. Xavier puts on the helmet for the first time and declares his intentions for Krakoa to everybody in the world. So this is another, like, Flash sort of backwards, because we're way past this point in the, the present continuity of things. And it's just showing the moment where he's like, I wanted to like you guys, and I did like you guys, and I wanted you guys to like us, and you didn't like us, and we have these great medicines now, and I would have given it to you, but now you gotta buy them, and you gotta buy them by accepting that we have our own nation.
Because
fuck you guys.
He's so much more threatening than how you're making him sound right now. You're making him so... Guys, like, I tried to do it, and it worked out. We couldn't get it to work out, and it was a pain in the... No, that is not the tone for that. He is straight up Magnetoing it. He's like, we tried to give you the easy way, but now we're forced to do it this way.
It's somewhere in between what you just said and what I was saying.
No. He was straight up a villain about it. Now,
No, he was assertive. He was assertive. It got to a point where, like, all right, this is getting dark, but that was toward the end of what he was saying. It was like, we've tried, we have saved your lives, but while we were so nice to you, while we were so great, you stood by and watched our children be murdered and die by the millions. Which, like, in those moments, too, like, in the panels, you see that it's like the Avengers are, like, kind of looking up at the thought bubbles and stuff, like, he's in her head. And, like, the Fantastic Four.
I love the idea, though, of him being like, so, we were looking out for you, and you let the kids die. And
yeah, he's not that. In that, I'm sure he was much more serious in those moments, where. But it's kind of fucked up, because that's something that never really gets addressed. Is that all the world's superheroes give no fucks about the mutants, like, at all. They're always just like they can handle their own issues themselves. So yeah, the other superheroes, they kind of suck when it comes to the mutants. And then when it gets to the end of that, that's when it gets real menacing, where it's sort of like the superiority complex of like, look, we're better than you. We're the next thing. We're letting you have your time. But, while you thought you were going to have the world forever, what's the line? Like, you went to sleep and the world changed?
while you were sleeping, the world changed overnight.
Yeah.
Something like that. Just a Badass fucking line.
It is a badass line, but that's where he's like real menacing, like where he becomes elitist and menacing like Magneto.
Yeah, he sounded
feel
like
like.
Magneto, and it's funny because it shows Magneto's face while he's saying that, and Magneto's smiling.
Yeah, he's like,
He's
yeah,
on the
we
future.
are.
Because he knows he's like, like the whole time he's been trying not to be like, I was right.
Magneto like wrote the speech.
I bet he did. That's a good point.
So he's smiling because like, I wrote that shit. That's a good speech right
That's
there.
my line.
So, also, the Quiet Council gets introduced, and they meet for the first time, and decide what their laws are going to be, and right away, because Sinister says something to, what's his name? I know he says his name's Paris, but like his like
Exodus.
Exodus, yeah. He says something to Exodus, and Exodus is like, "Don't talk to me." Like, I don't know, Lou's like, "I'll fucking kill you if you talk to me." And so Sinister's like, how about first law? No mutants killing mutants. Maybe lock this guy up over here.
Yeah, we should kind of put that down first before anybody kills somebody else.
Yeah, and then I think it's Apocalypse is like, how are you gonna, how is it gonna be a crime to kill people who can't die? Because their whole system is that they be brought back to life. And so Apocalypse is probably seeing this now as like, now you can really test yourself to the point of death, and then there's no repercussions. You just get brought right back.
This is kind of a good point, though, for, like, Danger Room training. Now you could just, like, fucking go at it.
Yeah.
Like, besides it just being Wolverine.
And I think it's Jean who says, no, it should be the opposite, that, like, because humans can't get brought back and mutants can get brought back, the worst crime should be mutants killing humans. Those who are superior killing those who are inferior, basically. And they're all like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And so right away, Sabretooth, because they bring Sabretooth out, because he's like their one prisoner. And
That's gotta suck to, like, be tried, and they're discussing what their laws are gonna be.
yeah,
in
before
front of
they're
you.
even...
There's, like, no precedence, and they're like, obviously he did, like, something bad. What if we make that against the law, what he did, specifically?
But they don't do it predicated on him. It's just sort of like he's in that moment hearing that's what the law is, like, oh, fuck.
He was like, guys, I know you're talking about me.
And so they're going around with what laws should be. And Sebastian Shaw wants to start getting into, like, economics and properties laws and stuff. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't matter right now.
Well, Doug says.
And that's when
Yeah.
Doug points out that, like, hey, this is like a person, not a place. So, like, ownership is, like, weird.
Yeah, and technically on Krakoa, if you own property there, that's slavery.
Yeah. And, but Storm's like, well, it also is our home. So, like, a sense of ownership is, like, entangled with that. But maybe you don't actually own property except for out in the regular world. And that's when, man, I spaced on his name again. That guy.
Exodus.
He's like...
Just do that. The rest of the podcast, just remind Evan about Exodus.
Yeah. And that's when Exodus is like, look, this is something that we should be respecting and building up because it's giving to us all and it's giving us a home and everything. So they're like, all right, the next law then is going to be that we respect the place in which we live. We respect Koa. And then there's a point, and it's so weird that it's these two. But Mystique, to kind of make fun of and tease Nightcrawler, is like, well, we haven't heard from the most, like, pious of us yet. And what do you think about all this? And Kurt quotes the whole, like, be fruitful and multiply verse from the Bible, and it's such a weird thing because it's like someone's mom is asking their kid, hey son, what do you think we should do? And he's like, fuck.
Yeah.
We should be banging. It's like a really weird thing.
Xavier's response was hilarious too.
He's like,
thank you, Kurt. I couldn't agree more.
To be fair, he just got out of a wheelchair, so he's been waiting to take that dick for a test drive.
I completely forgot about that he's just walking around.
Yeah, but so I just thought that was weird that like it was between like a mom and her son, and he's like, yeah, we need to be fucking.
I like the idea though of Xavier like with his head down, like come on, and then Kurt's just like, I think we should all fuck more, and he's like, yes.
And so when you turn the next page too, though, that becomes the next. The next page is the only 3 laws of Krakoa, and the first one is make more mutants, and then it is don't kill humans, and then it's respect Krakoa.
At the bottom in small print.
They had to erase when they first wrote out the first law because Charles just put fuck.
I think Charles manipulated Kurt. He put that thought in his head. He's like,
fuck. Finally, like they make, like finally his dick works, and they make the law that you have to fuck, and then he's not going to be able to enjoy any of it.
And so Sabretooth is like, all right, I see what's going on here. You guys are trying to fuck me is what's going on.
They're going to try to stuff me in a big dark hole.
And so Magneto was like, Xavier's like, well, look, now we have to decide what we're going to do here because we've just made these laws and we have to figure out what to do with you. Do you get a second chance because the laws weren't made, or are you made an example of? And Magneto right away is like, look, I told you exactly what to do, and you fucked up. So, fuck you. And then everyone basically in line is like, yep, fuck him.
But he's also like, fuck you.
Yeah, kind of. And
they're like, you have anything to say for yourself? And he's like, yeah, fuck you.
I like Sebastian's response. He's like, because they're running through the quiet council, like, what do you guys think? He's like, I don't care. Fine. Yes.
Yeah. Get rid
like
of them.
Sleeping through the fucking meeting.
Well, because they're not talking about money and property. Yeah. This is the only thing he cared about. And
he's less involved than the empty seat that's still there.
Right? And the weirdest thing, too, is like, so Xavier's like, all right, so we can't make you a problem for the rest of the world. But also, we're not tolerating any prisons on Krakoa. So you're in exile, but you're in exile in this deep dark hole forever, just forever falling or stuck in a weird stasis that, like, is forever. So fuck you, because you're gonna... And then also, like, we can't kill you because then you just get reborn because of our protocols there. And I don't even know why you put that in there, because they can't kill him at all. Because it's Sabretooth. Like, he's just not gonna die.
They can still kill him.
Drown his ass.
Well, but then he'd just come back after the fact, wouldn't he? Like, how come he hasn't been drowned to this point?
You can drown him. Wolverine drowned his son in a puddle.
Yeah, you just
and Dickens not...
He died.
Forever.
Yeah, well, not anymore. He's back. But...
Well, all right, then. Well, it doesn't work.
Well, you just got to make sure that... You just got to make sure that he never, like, can breathe. Because as soon as you take him up... So, this is morbid. But if you chained a bunch of weights on him and threw him in the ocean, he would stay dead until, like, the chains rusted off. And
he would die.
Well,
He'd die.
Dickens died. He just got resurrected, I think, from Apocalypse when he had Sentry, Dickens.
It all depends on which writer's rules, because as far as, like, Deadpool's healing factor goes, and, like, same with Wolverine.
As soon as they have the opportunity for life.
Yeah.
Well, Dickens' healing factor is stronger than Wolverine's because he doesn't have the adamantium poisoning his healing factor. He heals faster.
Yeah, but Deadpool's is stronger than Wolverine's, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying Wolverine's is not stronger than Dickens.
Yeah, but Wolverine survived.
Wolverine
he should die in a
was
puddle.
surviving
That's
a
what I'm
sun
saying.
for like a while. So
you know. I just noticed his hot claws are gone.
Yeah. You just noticed?
Well, like...
It became less relevant because the Infinity Watch stuff is done, right?
All the Phoenix stuff, but they never did anything with it, as far as I know.
I think it's because everyone thought they were dumb as hell.
Yeah, I just thought there was alluding to him being the Phoenix, because obviously, hot claws.
I mean, they did, but like the Phoenix version of him is like after every planet ends, and it's just like him, Thor, and Doctor Doom left.
I don't know then. I don't know. It's silly anyway. Like, there are already claws that can cut through anything.
Yeah, it made no sense. Make it hot.
Like, I understand you make a metal hot so that it can cut through things better, but, like, it already can. So
we can cook hot dogs on them.
He could cook his enemies. So because he keeps stabbing all his friends in the stomach, that way he can at least cauterize the wound.
I know, that's like the only thing you can do with him.
So yeah, it just ended up in a weird, ambiguous space with
He's like,
Sabretooth. Because I don't even understand that punishment. Because how is that not a prison?
I know, I was just about to say, we're not going to
It's
build
worse
a prison.
than a prison.
So we just put one underground.
It's
Yeah.
way worse than any prison.
I know, but how isn't it imprisoning?
It's a prison.
Yeah,
Just without food.
which is worse.
Yeah.
He's got the healing factor. His stomach will keep eating itself and regenerating.
Or unless like Xavier's just like we see how much resources get wasted in like the human prison systems. We're not gonna do that. Just fuck
Make a
off.
hole.
Yeah,
Throw them all in a hole.
just like eat parts of your arm, watch it grow back, and eat it again. Like that's how you're gonna survive.
Well, and also, like, maybe Xavier just knows that, like, he'll drop him in the hole, he will die, and he's just not going to bring him back.
But he says that, and then he goes, unless we decide otherwise later.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be some point in the future where Sabretooth, like, grabbed onto something and for, like, 2 months has been crawling his way back up.
Yeah. And also, wasn't he just a good guy? When did that change?
Yeah, they ignored that, like they did with Tony Stark. The only person who actually got a fix to that issue was Havoc.
Weird. Because, he was a good guy for a while.
Yeah, because he was in X-Force.
And even when he wasn't. Like, and he was an uncanny X-Men. Like, he was on Magneto's team of X-Men.
Yeah.
He was in Weapon H and in Iron Fist. He was a good guy in both of those.
Yeah, and they were just like, nope.
Yeah.
He's killing some people, robbing a flash drive from somewhere.
It's almost like Hickman doesn't care what happened before.
Almost, yeah, it's crazy. And then the mutants have a big old party.
Nope, and they fuck.
Implications, yes.
Technically, as far as the book goes, it's implications, but also Hickman pitched the idea of the book as there's a big mutant orgy.
Yeah.
So he said, the writer himself said, it's an orgy, but they just didn't have the balls to show it.
Yeah. Although Emma and Scott are the only ones who kind of look at each other like they're about to fuck.
Yeah,
And-
they do.
Well, and Logan
You
and
should-
Scott.
Well,
You should post those pictures of them, like, staring at each other.
Well, Logan was looking right at Scott. He wasn't looking at Jean.
Yeah.
Scott had a hand on his ass.
Well,
no.
then now they're roomies.
Yeah, where's Jubilee? Because I know fucking Dazzler's not making these fireworks.
No, it is. It's Dazzler's making the light show, and then Siren creeps up behind her and yells, and that's when there's a bigger explosion of light.
No, I know it is Dazzler. I'm just saying they're fucking fireworks.
Oh yeah.
And Jubilee's not there.
Yeah, well, yeah, somewhere.
Bullshit.
She's on Krakoa. Because she's there for Excalibur.
I'm sure she can make shit look like fireworks. Doesn't matter. Just nitpicking.
Dazzler can do anything.
Right after he's saying Dazzler can't do shit.
She's my queen.
I was happy she showed up. That small fucking cameo, just like the movie.
So, Powers of 10.
Exactly like the movie. Because that wasn't a forest, too.
Yeah.
Show up, make a light show, and that's it.
Yeah, the comic was just missing all the red cups and teenage angst.
Yeah.
For what we're supposed to be, like, middle adults. We're middle 20s. Like, early adults.
I think they're supposed to be... there's a couple people that are in their, 40s and 50s. Charles Xavier is supposed to be in the movies. The version of him that we see in Apocalypse... or not Apocalypse. What was the last
Phoenix?
movie they crapped? Yeah,
Dark
Phoenix.
Phoenix?
It's like an 8-year difference between that and the first X-Men movie.
Yeah, but 3 decades.
It's like those 8 years were rough for everybody. Cyclops never mentioned his brother again.
Did someone say it was an uncle or whatever?
Well, it's
Or
his
did
brother.
they not even... Oh, they did say it was
Yeah,
brother? They
he's just
changed
his
the
older
order?
brother.
Oh, okay. That was dumb. How much of those movies are dumb?
We're going to be watching the movie for what we're doing next week, so...
Yeah,
That
but
was a good one.
that one was less dumb.
Well, I liked most of them. So.
What?
I said I liked most of them anyway, so I said that was a good
Peter
one.
Dinklage. He's cool.
Yeah.
He's got a mustache in it.
Is that noteworthy?
Yes.
He's got a
It
mustache.
is. It is now.
I thought it was a great juxtaposition.
Okay. Is there any...
I wanted to elaborate, but it sounds so bad, so I'm not going
It
to.
looks
It's
like-
just.
I just cut you. I was looking at this fucking image, that one that Tony was talking about with Jean and Emma. It's because it's Emma or Jean and Scott looking at Emma. It looks like Scott's like, "Hey, we should get her in on this threesome."
Yeah.
And Jean's like, "All right," and she walks over there.
No, but Jean's face is like, you mean foursome.
Well, I took
And
that.
that's when Wolverine's staring back like, what's
Well,
up?
that page is kind of just all reconciliations, right? And it's the beer is like a symbol of that. Like Wolverine gives them the pack of beer, and he takes 2, and he's taking it one to that guy, that samurai.
Who is that supposed to be?
I think he's one of the Hydra guys, right? Isn't he like
The samurai guy.
Yeah.
Do you have the
like,
thing?
is his name Gorgon or something? Like he doesn't
Oh,
he?
is
If
that
he looks at
Gorgon?
you turn to stone,
I don't
and
know.
he also happens to be a samurai.
I was wondering what they meant by Gorgon, or Gorgon. 'cause
That's
I-
such a weird job to like. Like usually when you're like, oh, he happens to be like,
Yeah, because I think he's not actually blind. He just can't look at things.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, who is? Because they list him as one of the captains, and I was thinking it was the Inhuman, but I was like, that guy's not mutant though. So.
Yeah. So I think that's Wolverine. Like, all right, this is a fresh start with this guy, and then that's sort of Jean and Emma. Like, all right, fresh starts between us two. And then, but there's the look Emma is giving Scott, and then while Havoc's next to Scott, the look Scott's giving her back. I think they're the only ones actually looking at each other like they're gonna bang. Everyone else just seems to be having a good time.
you're gonna be
Yeah.
having a
Well,
good time.
Jean was
dude.
looking at her like she wants to bang too.
Well, I don't know, because those panels in between, they're like, she's reluctant to like, all right, yeah, here's your beer.
I think she
We're
was just trying to
cool,
play
I
it
guess.
cool because the face wise, she was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, she's trying to
All
not
right.
act excited now.
I think you're projecting, but okay.
Probably.
Scott's gonna be projecting.
So Powers of 10 jumps all the way back to the carnival again with Moira going up to Xavier, who's just all like dumb smiling. And then they get back into that same conversation that they keep going back to of like, I just had a great dream. And it's like, it's not a dream if it's real or whatever. And then they jump all the way forward again to 1,000 years into the X-Men. And the librarian goes to the zoo that like they kind of show early on in the series, where you're not quite sure then what's going on because these don't seem like humans. They seem like mutants because they all have blue skin and stuff. And they're like, it seems like the Sentinel, like the whole robot culture is now subservient to them. Whereas in the year 100 years into the X-Men, it seemed like the robots were taking over and the humans were subservient to them, and mutants were still fighting. Which is so weird that he did that because they're all different lifetimes. So it's weird that it's year 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 when it's not actually.
Knowing Hickman, he'll just tell us later.
Well, yeah. So, because he even says early on that, like, who could have predicted the, crazy, unpredictable ending that was the whole man-machine-mutant war. And that ends up being revealed as these people are post-humans who are just humans who
They're like
could
androids.
tap into... well, not even that. They tapped into just their genetic engineering and were able to make themselves super people. Like all the other super people who weren't
But
mutants.
didn't they do that with like robotic enhancements?
In the year... the 100 years, the X2, those were robotic enhancements. These guys were just saying enhanced. And they just kept saying post-human. But they weren't saying... They themselves aren't robotic.
I thought
That's
they
why
used
they
like
need,
nanites or something to.
No, those are Omega Sentinels. But that's why the Phalanx can't absorb them, because they aren't robotic. That's why they needed to make these robotic shells to put their consciousness in, which, when you think about it, is exactly what Xavier's doing. It's exactly what Xavier's doing with the mutants. He's
Yeah,
putting
just
consciousness
more
in.
organic.
Yeah, well, because he's replicating organic material with their bodies.
Yeah, with the
But they're
rebrand
still
program.
just memory banks on servers.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what the post-humans do, is they put their own consciousness into a server that the phalanx can absorb and, carry on from there. So the librarian is talking to Logan and Moira because they're, like, this is the last small group of mutants. And apparently Logan lives forever all the time, always. So he's just always going to show up as an old-ass mutant.
Yeah, they didn't really age him in this, though, which makes more sense to me than, like, the Old Man Logan timeline, where it's, like, 50 years in the future, and he's aged, like, 1,000 years.
Yeah. Well, he smoked heavy in that universe.
He's just got a little bit of gray hair on a beard, that's it.
Yeah.
In this one.
And they explained Moira being alive because, coincidentally, her and Logan have the same blood type, so he just gave her blood transfusions or some shit, and, like, he didn't really go into like, anything that Hickman seems to feel is like a weak point in his like plots or whatever, he does not at all discuss. He's just like, "Oh, lucky for you guys, you were the same blood type," and then doesn't touch it again. Like, he just has the librarian say that to them.
Like, what are they doing? Dialysis like the whole time?
Right. So the librarian's talking to them, and he starts speaking in English, which at this point is like a dead language. And so Moira and Wolverine realize, oh, he's been eavesdropping on them forever, because like when he first gets in there, a random mutant attacks him, and he's able to shut that guy down just with some weird TK power he seems to have. And he's like, look, my enhancements are better than your mutation. You should know better. Get out of here. And Wolverine walks out of the foliage, and he's like, he wants to be free. And the librarian's like, that's stupid. He doesn't even know what free is. They don't know there's an outside environment. And Wolverine's like, oh no, I'm sure to tell them every day what revolution is and that they're held captive. And then he starts speaking to him in English, and he's like, oh shit, that's a neat trick. You talking in English? He's like, yeah, I downloaded it. And then that's when they realize, oh, you've been eavesdropping on us then. He's like, yep, so I know if you die, you erase this stuff. He's speaking to Moira. And that he's having a conflict of like, tomorrow everything ends. Because the phalanx are going to absorb all of our society and all of our consciousness and then destroy everything. And so then I get to live as a little piece of God, but like in what I am thinking is not a real world. Like, I'm just going to be a copy in a digital space that's not real, and I don't know if that's better than being able to physically touch flowers and breathe air. And Wolverine's like, why are you telling us this? And he's like, well, because I want you to convince me which way I should go. Because either if I have arranged for the two of you to be transported off this planet before this happens, and if that happens, I become part of a god that is beyond space and time. And once I am a part of that god knows you exist. And that god, since it's beyond space and time, probably is not going to like you having any power over it. So it's probably going to exterminate you before you have your power, like after you die, like the same way Destiny did.
Yeah.
Well, threatened to. Whereas if I let you die before I become part of that phalanx and that godhead, you have the ability to undo this. And I'm trying to figure out which is I prefer. And they go on to start talking about like how they didn't know what the true enemy was. And that's when the librarian reveals that this whole time it was the humans' ability to tap into their genome and edit themselves into Supermen. That like mutants adapted to their environment, but humans got to a point where their environment no longer mattered, so they could supersede mutation. And so that mutants were only superior in theory, and that the humans were always going to make themselves better, and that Sentinels only, they bought them some time. They bought them a few years, and the Nimrods bought them a few decades. But eventually humans would get to a place where, they're all Supermen. And because they're perfect, I mean, they can eradicate the mutant gene anyway and just make themselves exactly what they want to be. And the mutants would never stand a chance. They're just sort of like an oddity now because there's no use for them.
Yeah, why they have them in a zoo now.
Yeah. And so realizing that, like, Moira knowing, okay, that's the actual, like, that's the thing. Because she was thinking it's inevitable for the machines to come to exterminate the mutants. That actually it is always humans that are their enemy. Wolverine kills the librarian, and he says something kind of snarky, like, "Oh dear robot gods, was that fucking fast enough for you?" As a comment to what the librarian said, mutants not being fast enough to stop him. And then stabs Moira in the guts, because of course he does.
It's kind of his thing.
It's his thing. and he even says, this is what I do.
I'm the best there is at what I do. What I do is stab my friends.
And then Hickman says, "So ends the 6th life of Moira McTaggart." And that bugs the shit out of me, because early on in the issues, it shows a linear timeline for all of her lives, and the 6th life says she dies. Like, that's the one where she's an assassin killing all of the Trask family, and that she dies when she discovers a wild Sentinel factory.
You think maybe they stole her?
Yeah,
She was reported dead?
I mean, does it say straight up she died or that she disappeared?
No, it says dies.
I don't know.
Yeah, because that timeline ends. The only ones that had continued were 9 and 10. And then it's revealed that 9 was the Apocalypse one. And that's the whole... That's part of why this whole year 1 for the X-Men, year 10 for the X-Men, year 100 and year 1000 doesn't make sense, because they are different lifetimes of Moira.
They were all dumb and pointless, in my opinion.
Like, year 100 was always the 9th lifetime of Moira. So it's not directly connected to 10 or any of the other ones. And apparently, year 1000 was always in the 6th lifetime of Moira, which means Moira knew since that 6th lifetime that the humans were the problem, that they were going to take themselves to the point of post-evolution and post-humanity, with the machine subservient and mutants, like, completely, like, as an afterthought. Like, she's known that since then, and they've only just now gotten around to this. Like, it just felt like a moment that was...
She was busy.
There's no 6 in this timeline.
Yeah, you count down 6.
No, it skips it. Life 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh! I counted down straight. I didn't go from that. I just went to the end, and I counted down 6. Okay.
Then
All right,
makes
never
more,
mind. It makes
a little more sense.
It makes more sense, but all right.
He was hiding this and showing you the whole time.
It still means she waited till the very end to try to do something about, like, humans becoming this.
I don't know, but it also puts a little bit more weight on her joining up with Apocalypse. Like, that's how desperate she was after that, and, like, still couldn't, like, teaming up with Apocalypse, still couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they just did that the year 10 and stuff so that you thought it was all the same timeline, then you realize, oh, nope, because they don't tell you till the end of both of those.
Okay, it makes more sense. So then I was reading 7 as 6. 7 was the one where she was assassinating the Trask line. But then that's also weird that she was going out of her way to kill the Sentinels when she knew it wasn't the Sentinels that were ultimately the problem. All right.
She's tripping.
Yeah.
Do you got anything else you want to add on to this, or?
Well, kind of. Moira's journal pops up in this issue, and that kind of just explains why so much of the X-Men still is the same in their history, their continuity. Like, because Xavier would have moments where he's like, he rejects what she showed him, and so he does Xavier shit, trying to do the trying to save the world that fears and hates mutants. And then why Magneto would break off, like, why they weren't always a cohesive team, even though it seemed so obvious the way they set it up in the first year of the X-Men that they should be, knowing what they know. Where she shows Xavier that they always fail, and then they both go to Magneto and show him, hey, you fail every time, so hard. Why, even after all that, they still break apart, and why Magneto would have ever fought the X-Men still. So it's sort of his way to keep X-Men history while also saying his thing is the real thing. Like, this was always the great plan.
Yeah.
That they finally come back around to. And even, like, shows that, like, Xavier had this idea of how, like, they could bring back like if certain power sets together, like worked in tandem, they could recreate fallen mutants, and they just need to find one that would bend reality and sort of like nudges why Proteus, like, because isn't Proteus her son? How she ultimately has him, which is also weird though, because it also implied that they always knew gold balls was going to be a thing to make the eggs.
Yeah. He's inevitable.
Yeah, like Xavier's like, there's got to be a mutant that's going to be able to make non-viable eggs that we could then have a reality warping mutant make viable. Like I don't know. It was weird. And then for some reason there are like entries about Xavier that get redacted, just cause.
Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't just make them like they were actually gold balls and they turned them into eggs.
Yeah.
Instead of them being unfertilized eggs. And
It's a weird power.
Yeah, and then they go back. They show that Moira's been there the whole time on Krakoa because she's not present during all the present stuff.
that makes him like that Super Mario villain, the
Oh,
Birdo.
bow.
Yeah.
Well, in that, do you remember the No Space, the so-called like tumor of Krakoa, when they were explaining the different areas of Krakoa? That No Space, that's where she is, like in her own like kind of secret lair. And
No Space sounds like where a lawyer points that out on Doll.
the No Space.
Yeah.
So Moira stresses that she has to stay a secret and that they can't revive Destiny because they're like, all right, the council went well, we're a nation, so that's great, but Mystique had some stipulations, one of which that we bring Destiny back to life, and she's like, fuck no.
Yeah.
She can't be back. But she's saying she can't be back because like they can't have any precogs. Anyone could see the future, because if they see the future, they know that they always lose, and they don't want to like start a panic. And Xavier and Magneto's like, look, we've never actually all been united before. This is like the one time. So maybe we won't lose. And at some point, everyone's going to be able to deserves to know the truth. And she's like, fucking whatever. But no. And I think mainly because she's like, fuck that bitch.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, they have kind of a history together.
Yeah. I think she just doesn't like her.
Probably.
It's kind of like, she's dead. She could stay dead. But that's HOX and POX.
Yep, and then this has been this issue of Mex-Men. Thank you for joining us on that. Just go, if you could go check out our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram. All of them are at Mex-Men Podcast. And again, go and check out James and his podcast at Marvel A to Z, and his Twitter, which is Marvel A to Z. Yeah.
And we have shirts for sale on TeePublic. Just look up Mex-Men on there.
Not just shirts.
Anything that they sell that they put our images on.
We have coffee mugs, like carrying coffee mugs, an actual with the handle.
Yeah,
we got
like the traveler mugs.
Got
with the
stickers.
lids.
Y'all want stickers? We
Yeah,
got stickers.
There's stickers.
There's traveling mugs, too?
Yeah, there's traveling
Yeah,
mugs.
it's mugs and like traveling ones with lids.
I didn't know they even sold those.
Yeah,
lids.
it's in the drop-down menu, like the way you would pick like a shirt size.
Zip-up hoodies.
Oh, you
But
can switch the
yeah,
mug.
you can switch the mug from a regular to a traveling.
That's cool.
Regular and zip-up hoodies. We got
Yes.
those.
Yeah.
Basically, anything that you can put your logo on.
Overalls.
Yeah.
Not overalls.
Whatever you
We
feel
don't have
comfortable giving us money for, we would like your money.
Yeah.
And you can have that thing that's available.
Yeah, they'll send you a thing, and then
we'll get some money.
Yeah, support the podcast. So yeah, that's it for today's episode. See you later.
That's for today.
That's for today.